Hi, I'm Marlene Marco, creator of Heart of Networking Events, and you're listening to S.M.E Stories Podcast.
You are now listening to the next great small business podcast. Welcome to the S.M.E Stories Podcast, where it is all about small businesses in Canada. And here's your host, Ken Alfred.
Hey everybody, thanks for down the show. We got a great episode today with Marlene Marco. Marlene Marco is the creator and leader of the highly successful Heart of Networking organization. She describes herself as a connector of people and a creator of opportunities. One of her greatest joys is to facilitate the connections that business owners need to move their business forward. Virtual Heart of Networking events are held monthly as are special training opportunities at a monthly Next Level workshop. Unique quarterly in-person events round out the calendar. She has been an entrepreneur her entire career, so Marlene speaks from firsthand experience. Helping others succeed is her passion, whether it is through networking connections, educating, or creating a spotlight. All members are given opportunities to shine. Marlene has been in the effective business networking space since 2005 and created the Heart of Networking in 2012. Marlene was named Ajax Pickering Board of Trade 2018 Business Person of the Year and is very involved with her local business community. She's honored to chair 100 Women Who Care, Ajax Pickering Whitby, and gladly devotes her volunteer time to help this stellar organization continue their worthwhile work in the community. So guys, we're talking about the networking space here, and especially at events as well. So I think Marlene's going to have some great stories, so sit back and absorb. All right, guys, we have Marlene Marco from Hearts of Networking Events. How are you?
I'm terrific. Thanks, Ken.
Yeah, so I guess this is going to be a new space that we haven't really ventured into, is actually the networking event space. So I'm very excited to do that. So, all right, Marlene of Heart of Networking Events, what's your story?
My story. Well, it's a long one. To start off with, I've always been self-employed. I've never had the corporate work experience or all the things that go along with that. I've always been entrepreneurial at heart my entire career. So that is what led into the business of networking. And I kind of fell into that by accident, if there are accidents.
I was going to ask you, how did you fall into that space, right?
Yeah. Well, I attended. I was at the time I was in a direct sale fashion company. That was my the work that I was doing. And I attended a networking event. And at the time, the owners of that networking organization were looking for a new chapter director for the home chapter. And they suggested that, I might want to interview for that. I had no idea what that even meant. I didn't know if it was volunteer or paid, or I just went to that event to learn and meet other women. So as it turned out, I did start working with them. I then later partnered with them as their executive director, and we were together for 5 years working, and we opened chapters across Canada. And then a few things happened and they decided to close their doors. But the local people who were in my chapter of that networking organization came to me and said, "But Marlene, we need this. You have to do something." So we did. That's when we opened Heart of Networking, and that's now 11 years ago, and have been evolving for those 11 years and continue to evolve.
See, that wasn't so long, right? So that's
well,
great.
and that might be the abbreviated version.
Well, we're going to dive into a bunch of different things. That's going to be fun anyways. So you got dragged into this thing by accident, right? And you just got the demand that people said, we need this thing. So was it just their lack of like networking functions during that time before when you started to create this whole thing?
Well, that would be part of it, Ken. At that time, there were not as many business networking organizations. I mean, there was the typical boards of trades and chamber of commerce and those types of things. But a big part of it was that I learned that I really loved to help women make the connections that they needed to make to move forward and to be able to support them and create that community that where we lifted each other up and got recharged by the events. And it was just an atmosphere that I loved and wanted to continue to build.
No, that's perfect. And let's backtrack for a second there. So explain to the listeners your company and all the services you guys offer to the business
Sure.
owners.
Sure. So Heart of Networking events, well, like everybody else, I guess, up until 3 years ago, we met in person. And and I have to say that the last 3 years have been a real blessing for Heart of Networking, because we learned that we can do things that we didn't know we could do, and we could add in other benefits that we didn't know were possible. Excuse me. So now we are at the core of virtual networking event organization. We offer one business training workshop and one online networking event each month online. And then quarterly at minimum, we do in-person events as well for the local membership. We try to create as many opportunities to spotlight the members as we possibly can. And we have built it as a membership model over these last 3 years. So as a VIP member, there are opportunities for speaking at the events, for being the guest trainer at the workshop. We even run, if a business has a physical location, then we run what we call an on-location event and invite the other members to come in and learn what they're doing there. And especially if they're a new business that people haven't really been into yet, or don't know really what they do. So it helps to open up the doors for them. We offer to partner with a member on information sessions, and those are just a little 1 hour. Those are so far all done online. And it gives all of us a chance to get to know that member on a deeper level. We may or may not become their customer. It's part of what it's all about, but that's not the full reason. Part of it is that we want to understand, and I think this is critical. We want to understand not just what people do, but why they do it, and what gets them up in the morning, and what their passion is. And that's what sets people apart. So I guess the short answer to your question is creating as many opportunities to put the members in the spotlight and get to know them better, build stronger relationships, and then we know who to refer.
Right. No, it's pretty cool actually. It's an interesting concept because I know I've been to a few networking functions and boards of trades and chamber of commerce. And sometimes, for people who've never been to one, I would suggest definitely look it out and try it out actually and see what it's like. Because I know sometimes the concern was always, okay, you got to have your elevator pitch ready to talk to everybody and hand out your business cards or virtual business cards or whatever that case may be and try to land all these people as clients, when a lot of the times, I don't know if some people might be receptive to that, but I think for a lot of people, they just, they don't want to feel being sold to, because they probably get that a lot as an owner anyways, right? Like everybody's calling you. I can't tell you how many emails I get from website developers that want to build a website for my company, right? Like Marlene's
Yes.
just chuckling in the back. So, and I guess when you go to these events, you don't expect to, it's almost like you want it to occur naturally, because I think generally people would want to do business with people they generally like and trust, right? So the goal is like baby step approach. Like you're not just going to be there and say, here's all I can do for you, and let's do business together. It's more like, no, tell me about yourself, and let's hear your story and all that sort of stuff, and then just let the really foster that relationship at the beginning phases to really and if something turns out in the end, great. If not, at least you said, well, it might not be working for me, but you know what? I do know someone who could definitely utilize your product or service, and that's how it is too, right?
Yeah, you touched on an awful lot of things there, Ken. Excuse me. It is the bigger picture of networking. It isn't about making a sale today. If that happens and the timing is right and the stars align, wonderful. Just don't expect it to happen every time you show up to a networking event, because it is a rarity.
Yeah.
and depending on the industry that you represent as well, right? There are some, if you sell a product that's sort of an impulse purchase, maybe you sell jewelry, for example, you might make a sale the first time. You might be wearing an earring that somebody says, "Oh my gosh, where did you get those? I need to have them." Okay. But if you're a mortgage agent, the chances of you lining up in time where, somebody needs your advice right today and, they need help, like that's a rarity. So you have to look at the bigger picture. It is about building relationships, and it's about truly understanding what other people do. You mentioned know, like, and trust. And absolutely, that's who you do business with, who we all do business with. I like to add to that, know, like, trust, and remember.
Okay.
So the consistency when you belong to a networking organization, whatever that might be, to me is important because yes, I might meet that person today and they explain to me exactly what they do and I think it's wonderful. And then they don't come back for 6 months. Well, by month 3, I may have forgotten them and moved on to somebody else. So it's important to really use the benefits that are provided. It's the old story. If you join a gym just because you signed on the dotted line and you don't show up for the workout, you're not going to get all that fit. And it's the same in networking. What you put into it is what you'll get out of it.
Yeah, I think that's what people need to understand as well, especially those who've never been to one, is that it is like you said, it's just to expand your network, and it's called networking events, right? So you're going to learn and you're going to meet new people and stuff like that, and potentially these people can help you in the future, or honestly, it could be something where you didn't even know you needed that product or service, and then oh wow, I can actually buy from this person because, otherwise I can go on the Google machine and try to
Yep.
look up, local stuff, but sometimes you never know, with Yelp ratings or all these other type of ratings, and you don't even know anymore if who do you really trust. So it's kind of good to see that. So how many people are on your team right now, Marlene?
In the organization as members.
We'll do
Um,
both. Yeah. So one for your total membership, but then also to help you run your company.
okay. So the membership, because we do have a membership option, but people don't have to be a member. They can kind of pay as you go if they choose. So of the paid members, we're a little over 100 of the paid members. And then we have a number of people that attend sort of when they can. They don't get as many benefits, of course, as the membership, but it suits their circumstances. And whatever suits them, that person's circumstances is just fine with me. Um, we have typically on our virtual networking events, we have around 60, 65 women. And the uh, business network, a business workshop it's called Next Level Workshop, with some networking in that as well. That's typically a smaller, more targeted group, depending on the topic, and we usually have about 20 to 25 on there. Our in-person events, because we open them up to the public as well, those tend to be larger. So we've got one coming up that's like a mini trade show idea. We do those twice a year, and we open that up to everyone, members, non-members, men, women, everybody's welcome at those. And it's just to understand what goes on in the local business community, who's working, who's doing what. I'm fascinated by the different industries, the different twists that people put on an industry and create a business from it. Like it's absolutely amazing to see all the different ways that people, women, anybody can build a business and make a good living that way.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely. And how many is
Oh,
helping you to actually steer the ship as
so
well?
on
That's a
my
lot of
on my
work.
team. So I
Yes,
I
on
don't
your
have
team.
any like full-time employees. I have people that I use as needed. So obviously and they've all come from networking, believe it or not.
Ah,
So I
practice what
have
you
my
preach. That's great.
I have my accounting services. I have a VA that I use on occasion. I have a social media that actually she's full time, not full time, but she's a regular. social media person. I have a graphics person. So they're kind of on an as needed basis. And as time goes by, of course, we need them. I need them more and more. I tend to say we because I feel like our organization, members, team, everybody is all part of Heart of Networking. I don't feel like it's my group, although I'm the leader and the creator of it. I feel like it's our group. And that's the culture that I have tried to build since day one. And I feel like I've been very successful in doing that. I feel like it is our group and we're all in this together. The high tide floats all boats, right?
I like that. High tide floats all boats. And I like that, that we're in it together. Because do you remember back when the pandemic started? Everyone was using that phrase, but it seemed like, at least within Canada, that, hey, we're all together. And then some reason, okay, the message is getting old. Everyone go back to butting heads with each other. And you're like, oh boy, never mind. I miss that days when all levels of government and the general story was, let's help each other out. And we could do that. We could use more of that nowadays, don't you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's one of the things that attracts people to the Heart of Networking community is the group atmosphere, belonging, learning together. There's a saying that everybody you meet knows something that you don't know.
Hey, do you need an error-free website? Do you need transcription that's accurate and on time? Would you like to remove noise from your video or audio recording? Do you need a spokesperson for your business? If so, we can help. At Northway Capital Group, we are happy to announce that we are now providing website testing services, audio transcriptions, and audio cleanup, as well as spokesperson services. We would love to help you on your next project. Contact us for more information at northwaycapitalgroup@gmail.com. Yeah, no, that's great to hear because I remember too, like one of my previous guests, we used to work together at a different company, and when I started doing this podcast, I started talking to him, and one of his stories was is that he was just starting his like networking or like a meeting, like a event planning kind of business, but it was all in person. This is literally just at the time before they shut everything down. And then he had to pivot, and now he's a successful digital marketing company with plenty of contractors that work with him. So it's like it's interesting how creativity can really start something which you didn't plan on. Because how many times did you hear about too during the whole pandemic when people would sometimes leave their job or their business and they decided to become like a freelance business, whether it's an Uber driver or a skip the dishes driver, because at that time the demand was really high on that, right? So it's
Yeah.
interesting to see how these businesses kind of started. So it's interesting.
There were many new businesses started during the pandemic. Some of a good number of our members, our newer members, just started their business during COVID, saw an opportunity. There was a gap somewhere that they could fill. And perhaps maybe they had lost their 9 to 5 job or were just, done with it. And so they saw it as an opportunity to create something new for themselves and their families. And it's a high number of people that actually, and perhaps more women than men, were able to start their own business and very successful business in quite different industries, new concepts that we hadn't thought of before.
Well, yeah. How many do you remember also? And I know we don't want to keep going back to the pandemic, but how many like pop up PPE shops that I saw in malls that were going
Right.
up, right?
Yeah.
Where people were selling all the PPE, the
Yeah.
personal protective equipment. That's what it was. So
Yep.
interesting. So back to the industry here. Is there any other details about your particular space that would surprise anybody? Not aside from the expenses and stuff like that, but anything else that when you tell someone that you run a networking event company, and they'll be like, they might have some preconceived notions on that.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And it's just that they've possibly never understood it before, or networking means something different to them. So if somebody's been working in a corporate situation, networking is working with other people in that corporate situation, right? And trying to impress the boss or it's a very different atmosphere. So sometimes they have to get past that to understand that we are designed to lift each other up, not to tear each other down or push anybody aside. And so I think that's probably the biggest misconception that I come across.
Yeah, and like that's what I was going to talk about in the tips from the pro segment. Is that aren't a lot of these things like isn't it too cutthroat where everyone's kind of like if you have let's say 5 mortgage agents that are members there, and they're going to work the room, and is there anything like that where it's like because I know there's some like I wouldn't call them I don't know if it's networking, but one of some organizations that you're only allowed to
Yep.
have one representative per industry kind
Yep.
of thing. So
Yeah. So this is sort of a pet point of mine, because we don't have any exclusivity. And you used a good example with mortgage agents, because we have a number in our organization, quite a few. Uh, they actually, some of them end up doing collaborative events together. They help each other out, but our philosophy has always been there's enough business to go around for everybody. We talked before about who you know, like, and trust, and remember. Um, and each person brings something different to the table, and you will click with one more than another in whatever that industry is. So if you come from a place of abundance, feeling like there is enough business to go around for everyone, to me, it just opens things up. That's our philosophy. I feel like putting exclusivity in would would be like coming from a place of lack. Like, you're my customer, because I'm the only mortgage person here. Where what if I don't really click with that mortgage person? Then I'm probably not going to use that person for those services. So we let people create their own relationships, and it's kind of like water finding its own level. It always finds its own level, and um, there's we do business with the person as opposed to with the company, I do
company,
believe. So, even with realtors, with mortgage, or even if
financial
you look
services
at,
providers, yeah, like
yeah,
insurance
even if you look
brokers,
at direct sales companies, so Pampered Chef, Young Living, Stella and Dot, whatever those direct sale companies are, there might be 3 or 4 representatives from that company that are part of your circle, your ripple of connections. And but you'll find the one that really speaks to you, and that's the one that you'll do business with. They all have the same products, they all have the same level of service. Service could vary, but the same return policy, same shipping prices, same products, same prices. But there'll be something about that one provider that speaks to you.
yeah,
So we
no,
kind of let people put it's open to you putting your personality out there and reaching out to whoever you want to do business with. I mean, there's the other side of it too, right? I mean, if you're the service provider and you're the Pampered Chef representative, for example, there might be somebody there that maybe you don't really want to have her as a client. Maybe you just don't click, and you have
yeah.
that option.
Hey you, do you need a voiceover? Well, look no farther. Northway Capital Group has your answer. Commercials and explainer videos, AVR and voicemail, health and wellness, corporate training and e-learning, announcements, documentaries, and biography. Contact us on social media or email us at northwaycapitalgroup@gmail.com.
Well, that's also the advantage too of what you talk about. If you have several companies that offer the same product or service, that if they're actually all working together and that, they can only deal with, there's enough business to go around. So, they'll be like, okay, well, I can't handle this particular volume of client. Can you take it? And then you're kind of referring them to a quote unquote competitor, but it could just be just like a co-partnership kind of thing where you're spreading the wealth. That's why it's always good to spread the wealth, because I never understood that, because I used to be a personal trainer back in the day. And there were some trainers who were very, they held everything close to their chest. Like they didn't want to, if someone was talking about, getting a new client, they would just be like, they'd freeze up and not really say who they're talking about. Right. I'm like, back then, this is before online personal training was a thing. But I said, think about it. There's 8 hours a day. How many clients could you possibly train in an 8-hour day? Maybe even a 10 or 12-hour day. Right. And how many members of the gym are there? So there's no way you can service all of them. So why can't you share that with other people? It doesn't make sense, right? So I never understood certain things. I know for some industries it could be very competitive and very cutthroat, that they have to grab as many as they can. But, I think what people have to understand is knowing your limit of literally how many clients can you actually service? That's all
And
you need to
service
know.
well. Yeah.
And service well, right? Because if you get 100 clients, it's almost like I would rather have 10 good clients than 100 clients where there's just too much that I can't. And then your service levels goes down, and then you have dissatisfied clients. So there's really,
Who tell
to
other
me,
clients and
yeah, exactly. Who tell other clients? And now with this internet thing, people can write reviews on your company. Before, they would only just tell family and friends, right? They'd be like, "Oh, this restaurant's no good. Their service is bad." Now they blast that on the internet, and if people look up that particular restaurant and they see reviews and they see that, they're like, "Oh, you got to be careful with that," right? So, back to questions on you here about the industry. So, what has been your biggest failure, but also your biggest success so far?
um so failure, I don't I mean there have been ups and downs.
Yeah.
That's
The biggest
at
down.
sorry?
The biggest down then. So if we
The
don't want
biggest
to
down.
so far.
I guess well, I don't know. It's been a progressive growth. Um I think I guess one of the biggest revelations that I had was understanding that not everybody I feel like everybody should be networking, and there's some resistance to that. It's with some people that they don't feel that they need it, want it, whatever. That always surprises me, because I see so much success coming from people who do tap into networking and use it effectively. And I feel like people could really use it and grow their business, but if they're not ready to accept that for whatever reason, then that's their choice. And again, I can't be giving them unsolicited advice either. Uh, but so that would be my biggest, I guess, disappointment, perhaps. Sometimes I think a new member is going to come on board and really be a big help to the membership, and then they decide for whatever reason that's not going to be for them, and that there's a little of that, not a lot, thankfully. Um, but the successes, it's watching other members create collaborative um, thing events and so on. That's a big one for me. Is watching them grow and build, watching them create something where they work with somebody that they met at Heart of Networking. So here's an example. We have a realtor, a mortgage person, and an insurance person, and they will sometimes work together. They met at Heart of Networking, and they will sometimes put on seminars together, or first time buyer seminars, that kind of thing, a variety of things. And so they're both serving the same target market, but they're serving them in a different way. So that way they can, tap into each other's ripple of connection and really work well together that way. Um, so watching their growth, and knowing that I played this little part in bringing those people together as they grew and built. That to me is success. That's what I live to create, are those connections. We have 3 pillars with Heart of Networking. We have connection, education, and opportunities. So the connection part kind of speaks for itself. We talked a bit about that not being necessarily your next client, but it could be a collaboration, or it could be a new team member that you found there. There's all kinds of, or it could be a referral. I like to use the example. We have one member who does animal Reiki as a big part of her business. I personally don't have any pets, but I'm a good person to know what she does because I know lots of people with pets.
Yeah.
So that's an example of where referrals come from building relationships, but not necessarily using that service provider yourself.
Yeah, it's almost like you sound like a proud parent for some of these successes, right? You're just seeing when people see others succeed, even if their only contribution, like you said, was just very minuscule, like whether it's just setting up, having the venue that they met, and now they're doing things together. It's like you kind of feel proud of that. So
Absolutely.
that's good to hear. So,
Yep.
hey, do you need an error-free website? Do you need transcription that's accurate and on time? Would you like to remove noise from your video or audio recording? Do you need a spokesperson for your business? If so, we can help. At Northway Capital Group, we are happy to announce that we are now providing website testing services, audio transcriptions, and audio cleanup, as well as spokesperson services. We would love to help you on your next project. Contact us for more information at northwaycapitalgroup@gmail.com.
Thank you for listening to the S.M.E. Stories podcast, which is owned by Northway Capital Group. Please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Northway Capital Group.